Hi and welcome back to the Crafty Whisk. I'm so glad you're here. Today I'm doing a card swap. This is the finished product, and to tell the truth, I'm actually doing two card swaps. One was for juvenile or primary age children, and the other one was it had to contain a stripey element. So I thought this fits both criteria. So let's get started. Now, as we're in Australia, our card fronts are 14.8 by 10.5. So it's a little bit different to the US. And the stamp set I'm going to be using today is from Clearly Besotted, called Pirate Pals. And I'll be stamping it out with the Memento Tuxedo Black ink because that is Copic friendly. And you'll notice I have my card front not in the corner of my MISTI, it's more in the centre. And I'm using the sticky matte grid lines to help me out here, because I want the island to sort of come off the card a little bit. It's sort of a thing I'm sort of trying out where I have the focal element in a lower corner instead of in the middle of a card. Now I will need to create a mask for the island so I can do all the ink blending in the background. So I'm pulling out my Gina K masking magic. You can also just use low-tack tape or little Memo notes as well, sticky notes. But I have this to hand, so I'm just stamping the image out on that, and I will fussy cut that out a bit later. Now for the little pirates, I'm just using it on a block because I need, I think I did 20 of these fronts in the end. I only needed to do 16, but I always like to do a couple extra just in case they're not up to par, or in case I need to give them away to someone. It's always nice to have backups. So once they're all stamped out, I'm going to work a little bit on the background. So I'm using a stamp from My Favourite Things, and it's called Rippled Background. It is a red rubber stamp, so you take out all of the layers in your MISTI to be able to fit this in. And I'm using two inks from Simon Says Stamp in their Positively Saturated ink range. I'm doing Seafoam and Surf. And what I'm going to be doing is I wanted like a graduated or a mottled effect because it's meant to replicate the ocean. So I'll be inking the stamp up mainly with one colour and then going in with a sponge dauber and just putting the other colour here and there on there. So you get like a two-tone effect, but it's random. And I'm just using some blue paper or cardstock that I had in my stash. I'm pretty sure it's actually from Officeworks in their quill range. And I just wanted a little bit more depth, so I'm just stamping it out twice. And that's the effect I get. So it's just two different blues, and it's meant to represent waves. I'll put all the Copic colours in the description below, but I've also got them on screen there for you as well. I did experiment a little bit with the monkeys. They were so fun to colour in, and I have sped this up quite a bit so you're not painstakingly watching me colour in 20 monkeys. You can see up in the top corner there that I have the sample that I did that I'm basically copying because I was very happy with the results on that one. And I'm not using black for the hat, I'm just using some neutral greys. So it resembles black, but it's not black, it's not as harsh as black. And as usual, I'm going with my darkest down to my lightest. It's the way I actually prefer to colour. It's not the way you're meant to colour, but it works for me. It works for my style of colouring. Now, I don't have dyes for this set. Clearly Besotted don't provide matching dyes. So you can fussy cut them out by all means. I hate fussy cutting, which is why I usually buy the matching dyes. But I put it through my scan and cut machine and I didn't allow a border. I wanted it to cut right on the line. But to hide that white edge of each of the monkeys, I've just used a black texter. It's actually Memento, this one, but you can use any black texter you have to hand or Sharpie, and always do it from the back. You just glide the edge of the texter along the rim of your die cut piece. And if you've got any like little bits that have remained white on the front, because a scan and cut does a really good job, but it's not perfect. So I'm just colouring in little bits that just didn't manage to get into the crevices of. And that's the end result. You get a nicely finished die cut piece. Or cut piece, sorry, not die cut in this way. Now this is a sample that I have done and I'm going to try and replicate that 19 more times. I think all 19 turned out just a little bit differently, but that's the way it goes. It doesn't really matter. So I'm using super fast motion for this as well, because it took a while. It actually took a couple of days. After I finished my shift at work, I'd come home and do some colouring. It was good fun to colour it though. I really liked how the sand turned out because I used a stippled effect. I coloured the base of the sand in and then I just got some of the darker brown markers, Copic markers, and just created little dots. And that gave me the effect of sand. It's a really cool trick. I did use a fair few colours, I must admit, but I did keep it relatively simple because I had to do 20 of them. So I actually had like a little production line. I did all of the grass bits, all of the leaf bits, and I came back, did all the sand bits, did all the treasure chests. So I only had the one group of colours out at a time. I just left the lids off because you can do that for a little while with the Copics. So I just had to grab for each colour as I went. And I've just used two different colour yellows to create the gold look on the treasure chest because I wanted it to have a little bit of an aged patina to it. So I used, for the yellow, I used Y08 first, and then I went over just the corner bits with Y26. So that's the island all done. And now I'm going to be doing some stenciling. I only need to stencil part of the card because I'm actually going to be putting it on the base of the blue ripples. So this is where the mask comes into effect. Just pop that over there. And yes, I used the one mask for all 20 cards. That's why I really like using the Gina K masking magic, because it stands up to the punishment of being a mask over and over and over again. And I've still got it. I've kept it in with the stamp so that I don't have to cut it out again. So for the stenciling, or the background, I'm using Distress Oxide in Tumbled Glass and Salty Ocean. Now the Tumbled Glass is what I'm using for the sky, and I'm using it very faintly. I really don't want a dark sky. I just want to give the illusion of clouds in the sky and just give it a little bit of colour so it's not stark white. So you go over very, very gently. I'm using a Kindred stamp stencil here, but you can use any cloud stencil. You can even make your own stencil just by cutting the shapes out of a piece of paper and using that. It won't last long term, but it's good for short term things like clouds and grass. And you'll see that I've drawn a little bit of a circle on this one, and that's just guiding me as to how far I need to extend the sky and the ocean. And I'm using Salty Ocean just to do the little bit of ocean that's underneath the island there. And it doesn't look like much now, but when you take the mask off, that's when the magic happens. Ta-da! Super easy and very effective. So now I'm going into my Waffle Flower additional circle nesting circle die set, and I'm going to cut out the island part, and you'll notice my die is hanging off the edges. I'm just trying something I did a long time ago, and I thought it would be really good for this one. It's going to make my focal point of the card in the lower right hand side, and I really did not want it to be a proper circle. I just wanted to have the illusion of a circle, if that makes any sense at all. And I save all those bits of card and I use them to stamp out things like the little monkeys and things like that. And this is how it's going to sit. Now you're more than welcome to raise it up off of the card, but because this is a card swap that I'm doing it for, we like to have everything pretty flat down onto the card base, because we're posting 8 of them at a time, or in this case, I'm posting 16. So I'm just using glue. You can use tape, you can use whatever you like. And I will pop the monkey up a little bit just to give it a little bit of depth. And I'm using the Snazzi Scrappin foam dots because they have a small loft to them. But before I forget, I'm going to use my gel white pen and just highlight little bits here and there to sort of make the images pop a little bit. Sorry, my head's getting in the way a bit there. It's amazing the difference just this little accent of white can give a piece of work. And you don't have to use this brand. I think this one is the, let me have a look. I've got it right next to me. I think it's the, it's Sakura Jelly Roll 8 I'm using, but any gel white pen will work. I know here in Australia, Officeworks has a whole range of pigment pens like that. I think it's a Posca. And they have a whole range of different thicknesses of the nib. I prefer about the 0.08 thickness myself, but you can get them smaller as well and larger. So I'm just going to pop him there. Now, I didn't notice at the time that I was making him half in the water and half on the island. The rest of the cards, he's all on the island. He's not floating in the water, so to speak. And using the same stamp set, I'm just going to stamp out the little sentiment that I wanted on there. And it's "Ahoy there, cheeky little monkey." And I'm just going to use the stamping block again because I need to do 20 of them. And I just wanted to do it pretty much on the size paper that I wanted. So I have cut a lot of my experimenting out here because this is the first time I'm using this particular punch, and it's from Stampin' Up. And the concept of it is fabulous. I love the idea that it can just do the banner for me and I don't have to think about it. But I did have a little bit of difficulty getting it to cut in the middle. So what I found for me is I turned it upside down so I could see exactly where it was going to cut, so I knew it was going to be centered. I tried using the grid marks or the little grids on the actual punch, and every single time it came out off center. So I thought, you know what, I'm going old school. I'm going to tip it upside down. That's what I always used to do with punches. That's the way I was taught. And it worked a treat. I didn't have any muck-ups at all. Whereas when I was trying to do it by putting it in through the top, I think I had one success in every 5. So it wasn't great. Oops, my apologies there. My smoke detector went off. It's fine. Not burning down. Nothing's wrong. So I'm just going around the edge of the sentiment just so that it ties it in with the background and doesn't look so stark white. And I stamped it out with the Versafine black because it gives a really nice crisp image for sentiments. I love it. And I'm just going to pop it up on a little bit of foam tape just so it has a little bit of dimension above the island scene. And I cannot get things on straight, so I'm using a T-square ruler just to help me out. And there we go. 19 to go. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to click subscribe and share, please. And I'll see you next time. See you later.